right. I'm excited to be here today with my new friend, Alexia Erlichman. Alexia has built a powerhouse marketplace connecting independent musicians with top industry players in film, TV, advertising, and gaming. So that's part of the company MusicGorilla. And so I'm excited to have her on the podcast today to talk a little bit about showcasing your talent. And in the current market where there's so many talented artists and there's so much noise, how do you actually cut through the noise and connect with people? And in particular, you had mentioned that you have some experience in terms of being showcased during South by Southwest. And so looking forward to connecting and hear a little bit of feedback from you in terms of how can artists best learn how to cut through the noise in such a noisy marketplace. So thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it is definitely noisy out there. I think it's interesting because in more recently, artists have gotten a lot more opportunities to get their music out. But also with that, of course, comes a lot of music and a lot of artists and a lot of people at the same time trying to progress their music, get exposure for their music, all kinds of things like that. And I think it is very difficult to cut through the noise. But I think for artists, the best thing to do is just do what you do, write good songs, keep writing good songs. Don't rely on, the most popular thing that you have right now. Keep going. Continue learning your craft, continue learning how to market. I think I think musicians have a very difficult job these days because they have to do everything. So they're wearing multiple hats, and marketing is a very, very difficult one. So I think that if they can focus on the music and let the music speak for them, let the music rise to the top, it will find a home.
Awesome. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that, really it's important to focus on the fundamentals and going deep there. And there's a lot of different channels and opportunities and things that are kind of coming up. But at the end of the day, ultimately it does come back to having a good product and focusing on your music and going deeper into that. And that'll make all of your other parts of it more effective when you have that first part.
Yes, exactly. And you hope, you hope the good rises to the top and that is how it should work. And it doesn't always. We come across fantastic artists and we're like, how are these people still unknown or still not gaining traction? But I do think that as a rule, that's the most important thing is just focus on what you do best.
That's a great point. It reminds me of an analogy that I think fits this idea pretty well, which is that building a community or building your music career is like building a fire, and that the music is sort of like the logs. And if you're trying to start the fire with wet grass, then it doesn't really matter how much marketing or flames you got to throw at it. It's not going to work. But if you have it doused in lighter fluid and it's amazing, now on its own, is it going to magically start fire? Probably not. Maybe lightning would strike, but it's pretty rare. But it requires some marketing and promotion to generate the sparks or the flames. But it is you need both. And if you do have wet grass, it's not going to work. So I agree. I think it's a good.
That's a great analogy. That's a great analogy, and it's true. The thing is that if you have that good base, if you have that good thing, then other people will come to it and they'll help you start that fire. They'll help you increase that span. So I think that has to be the number one priority for artists.
Awesome. So, do you want to kind of dive into that specific need then, if in terms of products, or do you want to focus more in the vein of creating the sparks now that they kind of have that product?
Yeah. So, I think for us, for my background and for where MusicGorilla comes in, we want to give artists a platform. Right. So, and there are a million platforms out there where we don't do distribution. We're not trying to be something that we're not. But what we focus on are opportunities in media So film, TV, commercial placement, even, higher level blogs. We try not to focus on the very saturated markets, but we do try to get artists good, solid opportunities for their music. And then we do showcases so that people get live experience and they have the opportunity to showcase live. I think that because so much is done in home or in studio, or now I think that artists tend to forget that building a live show and building a live base can really help as a catalyst in terms of, it's one of those logs, quite honestly. And it helps your music reach more people. It helps get more exposure for your music. And I think that there's less of a focus on playing live these days than there used to be. So we do showcases during South by Southwest. We do industry showcases in New York City. So we do feedback, like the artists get feedback on their performances, and we invite A&R, but we also invite producers, we invite publishers, and we get the artists' feedback on their music so that they have some direction. They have some like, okay, this is fantastic and is working great, but maybe focus a little bit more on this one item. Just to help further your product. So I do think that if you have a good song, that's the beginning. But if you can get the opportunities or get the appropriate media outlets for that song, that can be huge.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super helpful. Having feedback and. Yeah, to bring it back to like another analogy, it makes me think of like shooting a free throw, where it's like if you're blindfolded and you're trying to like make it in the hoop, then like you have no idea where you're even like aiming for.
Right.
So being able to come to a showcase and be able to get real feedback that kind of gives them direction, I imagine is extremely helpful. And it sounds like what you're saying too is like it starts with the song, it starts with the log, and then some of those opportunities to generate the sparks or the flames start to really matter.
Yeah.
Could you share a little bit more about how does someone know if their biggest challenge or if their biggest opportunity is focusing on like the music production, or how do they know if they're ready for some of those opportunities to work with the platform to get their music out?
So I think they have to have honed their skills to some extent. I mean, we could talk about real logistics. Like you have to have a quality recording. You have to have, you have to have your information embedded in your track. You have to, all of like the really straightforward basic stuff. We always say that artists have to have a radio edit of their music and an instrumental version. So that if they're submitting something to a television show, you can't have explicit language, obviously. So, you need a radio edit, you need instrumental versions of your tracks. These are always useful things if you're planning on pushing your music to film, TV, commercials, any media, basically. So in terms of the very basic stuff, I would say that those are priorities. And then once you have those laid out, you need to have music that you believe in. But a lot of the time, it's just a question of finding the right thing for the right project. In other words, you could have a perfect song, but if it doesn't fit exactly what the music supervisor has in their head, or what the director, for that matter, has in their head, it's not going to matter. It could be absolutely ideal, but you have to, some of it is that spark. Some of it is just that the meeting of the minds and hearing the right thing at the right time in the right place and having it click.
Awesome. It makes sense. Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is that often, music supervisors have like a particular thing that just fits with the project. And so it's not even necessarily a matter of like, is the music, good or not? Like that's important, but oftentimes it's more just about the fit and about finding like a relevant placement. What are your thoughts around, as an opportunity, you have sync licensing and these types of opportunities, I think is like a great business opportunity for artists where they can make like a full-time income, just from this one avenue. I also know that sometimes artists have like mixed feelings around like knowing how much time, how like the strategy to kind of dive into this, like they should go. For example, should they just write for sync and just kind of focus on that particular angle, or should they focus on their original music and then also try to like have sync opportunities? Curious to hear your thoughts on who has the best odds of getting getting a good outcome.
That's a great question, because there are many artists who do write for sync. That's what they do. They see an opportunity, they write something specifically for that opportunity, and then they submit it. Sometimes it's very difficult because sometimes the opportunities themselves have a very quick turnaround time. So you have to be a person who can write quickly if that's going to be, your the way you're going to do things, your mode of operandi. So I think that to me, it depends what your goals are. If you are looking to make a career in music, not necessarily in music licensing, but make a career in music, where you're looking to tour and you're looking to put out records and you're going that direction, then I feel, and these are not mutually exclusive, but then I feel like you write your music, you put out your best product, and if that happens to fit with a licensing opportunity, fantastic. But I think that should be the focus for those artists, is putting out their best music, regardless of what the opportunity may be asking for. That said, obviously, people can make an excellent living just licensing, and royalties and all kinds of things like that. So I do think that there is an artist out there. I have to say, in my experience, most of the artists who are solely focused on sync are older people who don't necessarily want to tour, or, don't feel like they want to be on the road anymore. Don't feel like they want to be away from their families or, whatever it is. But those are two different directions. And I think it's very difficult to write for sync. It's very difficult to write for a specific opportunity. A lot of the time there are things that are specific requests. In other words, they'll list an artist, that they're looking for a vibe of in terms of the opportunity. And I think that, if you're an artist who can do that, that's great. But I feel like there are a lot less people who can do that than may think that they can do that. It's a very difficult process to specifically write for sync. And because you're spanning genres also, right? So you have to be good at a lot of different things in order to do that. And of course, have an excellent setup where you can get a high quality recording very quickly.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is that, while possible, and sometimes people do that, especially if their goals are more aligned with you being at home with like families, and they might focus particularly like on sync. It can be challenging because the requests that come in are often very like custom specific to a certain genre or certain kind of artist. And so if you're trying to be a chameleon and trying to like kind of bounce between, then often maybe the quality won't be quite on par with what it would be if you were completely focused on that and it was authentic to like you and your style of music. And so often, just by focusing on your original music and creating the best quality product, then what you talked about earlier about like kind of matching it to the right opportunities, it can be a powerful angle to take.
Yeah, and more natural too. In other words, it's much more likely that song that you wrote that happens to align with this request is going to be a great fit because it came naturally, because you weren't forcing it. It is what you do. In other words, if you focus on what you're good at and you focus on what speaks to you, that's going to come through in your music.
That's great. Yeah, it definitely feels like it's kind of a relief when you can just sort of like let go or just like be who you are, be yourself, and let that be the thing. Because it doesn't take like as much you don't have to really try to be yourself. If you like try to be yourself, then it's like,
then you are.
Like, yeah, like you can't. And so, so it is a lot easier just to like, you know, to do what is authentic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Curious to hear your thoughts on, obviously right at the time of recording this, there's like a whole wave of AI revolution as it relates to all kinds of fields, but in particular like generative music, kind of the Wild West in terms of like copyright, royalties. What's your take as an insider, like on the world right now and where you think it might be headed?
I think the world is crazy. I think that AI can be a tool. I think that AI can be a tool for musicians. I think that AI can be a tool for songwriters. I think actually generally for the world, AI is a great tool, but it's not a replacement. In other words, I don't believe that that AI will replace artists, or that it will replace, or that the music coming from AI will be better than music coming from human artists. But I do think it's a powerful tool, and I think people should use it as a powerful tool. I think that there's been a lot of technology and a lot of changes in technology, you know, even looking at the last 20 years. And if you use things, there have been many things that people are like, oh my God, this is going to be a terrible thing for humanity. This is going to, you know, destroy artistic vision, or this is whatever it is, you know, even coming down to being able to record at home. These are all things that are technological advances. And if you use them as tools, they can be that for you, rather than, you know, being something scary or something that's going to take over the world.
Yeah. It is a wild time to be alive.
Yes.
Even the fact that like, that we can like have this conversation is pretty wild. Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is that, you know, there's been a lot of different technology like revolutions, and often, especially in the music industry, like we resist it and we're afraid of it, and you know, drag our feet too long, and then it ends up like it happens anyways, and then it's like now we're like way behind because you know, the technology was always coming. And so as long as we, you know, approach this in a way where we understand it's a tool, and we try to avoid, you know, acting out of fear, but instead of worrying about it replacing us, we use it as a way to augment and facilitate our creativity. And that is one way that we can not be left behind or not be like hit by the tidal wave, but we can kind of swim along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you use things to your advantage, then they are to your advantage. You know, if you kind of embrace things, or you're an early adopter, or you become an expert at Blue Sky because it's the next social platform, or, you know, whatever that looks like in your world, if you make it something, if you make it something good, and you make it something that you're using to your benefit, it's very powerful. It's like the path of least resistance. You know what I mean? If you resist something, it's the energy is going against it, and it doesn't allow you to move forward.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm like an analogy machine. But, kind of like if you're trying to catch a wave, it's like the wave is coming. It's like it's happening, and it's like there's like the energy is there, and you can either swim along with it and try to catch it and get momentum. And if you do, then you know that's going to give you a nice boost. Yeah. But if you try to swim against it, if you don't, it might literally just come toppling on top of you.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of different waves, revolutions that happen. But.
Absolutely. And to go with that water analogy, there's a saying that says that water is the most powerful element on earth because it's perfectly non-resistant. It's not going to go, it's going to go around. It's going to go through, it's going to go under, it's going to go over. If you look at things that way as a person, but especially as an artist, and you think about, okay, if I am using AI for something, how can AI be useful to me? Because that is the intention of it. The intention of AI is not to take over the world. The intention of AI is to improve things. It's to further things along. So if you can use it to that end, then I think it can be a great tool for artists.
Awesome. I like it. I love technology, and I love the conversation around AI. I use it a lot. It's like my executive personal assistant.
How do you use it?
Gosh, it's basically like, where do I not use it?
Okay.
It's always up my screen. I'll use it to as like a first draft of most things. So if it's like, I don't know, an email or a plan for like a daily review, sometimes I'll go for a walk and do like top 3, review of the day, top 3 goals for tomorrow, and use it for, I don't want to ramble on here for the whole thing, but it is very useful. Use it for software development, use it for,
that's great.
A lot of things. But the reason I bring it up is I'm definitely a tech optimist, and I think that the trend of technology has always been towards like creating more freedom and alleviating, suffering and like pain and problems, and like solving problems. So I'm like a believer in entrepreneur. I'm a believer in how technology evolves. I also have question marks around like AI and like digital superintelligence and where it's headed as it relates to like previous technological revolutions. Like I wonder if there's something like inherently if it is just sort of like the same kinds of revolutions we've always had with technology, or if it does become sort of like agentic and we have a quote unquote like artificial general intelligence or even like a super intelligence, like is that fundamentally different from different technological breakthroughs? And I guess one thing that brings me solace is just thinking that if we do reach a point where it's like somehow like musicians are like, like a lot of the roles that we have are like replaced, then probably all of the roles of all like all of us are gonna be in the same boat.
Yes.
But I'm with you about like art in particular, because art seems like one of those things that even in like if like the rules of the economy sort of start to break down because supply and demand, like we have unlimited abundance of human, like labor is basically no longer like a limiting factor. Art still seems like one of those things that's kind of subjective, where because we kind of just decide like culturally like what's valuable, and like who's to say the Mona Lisa is actually worth $800 million?
Yeah,
we just like decided like
we just decided.
And so I do feel like art and in music in particular is like sort of tied to more of this like identity based expression, which can't like fundamentally be replaced by AI or by a computer. So I feel like compared to most roles and jobs that potentially could, the actual act of the expression and the act of identity itself is a thing that it just fundamentally can't be replaced.
I agree. And if you look historically at things, I mean, it's not like certainly music has evolved, but music has been around since humans have been around. Sound and creating sound for enjoyment has been around since, the earliest days of humanity. And if you look at a fine arts example, you can create art on a computer, but it doesn't stop people from painting. It doesn't stop people from sculpting. And I feel like it's a similar progression. In other words, I think that just because you can do it doesn't mean that will be the sole version of it. And I think what you say about art being subjective is very important, because it is. You're going to hear something completely different than I hear something.
I like it. Yeah. So art is sort of the expression of who we are, which we can have tools that sort of like help us to craft a vision or idea. But ultimately, it's like the source itself, like that creative impulse or channel is sort of the thing that is the true nature of art.
Yeah.
Didn't expect to get this philosophical.
I know. That's great.
Cool. So, so talking about kind of showcasing
Yes.
art and being able to present that in a way that connects with the right people. Could you share a little bit about when it comes to a successful showcase, something like South by Southwest?
Mm-hmm.
If an artist is interested in being featured or being selected for an opportunity like that,
Mm-hmm.
how do they get started, and how do they create something that's worth sharing on a platform like that?
So I think that again comes back to the live show. I think that the live show has to be engaging. It has to be honed. It has to be in a place that is ready for public consumption. So I don't. I know lots of artists who will play no matter who's in the audience, and I know other artists who get very disappointed if they don't have a packed house, and that's just the reality of the situation, of the day and time and combination of things. And I'm not even talking about South by Southwest. I'm talking about at your local venue. It doesn't matter who you're playing for. The point is that you use that opportunity to make your product better. So you make your live show better by doing it over and over again. And so I think in terms of showcasing at a conference like South by Southwest, I think again the product has to be good, and you want your show to go with your music. You don't want it to take away from your music, but you want it to go with your music. We've had lots of different types of artists. I mean, we've been doing unofficial showcases at South by Southwest for more than 20 years, and so we really focus on showcasing as many artists as possible, and as many, we are very diverse in terms of the artists that we showcase, but they just have to have a good product. And it's everyone from singer-songwriters to hip hop to heavy metal to we've had some really fun artists that have like a whole kitschy thing going on, where they're dressed in like neon and they're carrying a boombox and they're just like having a party on stage, and everything translates because they've really focused on their live show.
Awesome. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that really like one of the most important things is practice and like showing up and doing it repeatedly.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how you sharpen the saw or sharpen the edge of the live show. And so maybe a place to start is, I mean, let's say that someone who's listening to this right now is a little bit earlier on where they haven't really tapped into like their local market yet, and they haven't started playing some of these shows. What are some opportunities or things that you'd recommend that they start with in order to kind of sharpen that saw, or in order to get better at their live show? And in particular, like feedback, like you talked about earlier, like, I'm curious if someone's looking to improve quickly, what do you recommend that they do to start?
Well, I think they can watch. I think they can, look at videos of other artists playing live, maybe not at a Taylor Swift level, where there's a ton of production behind her. But on a middle ground, and really look, there are tons and tons of examples on YouTube of bands playing live. And I think that's one thing. I think you could also, if you're a singer, depending on what you're doing, you do it in the mirror, record yourself. In other words, enable yourself to view yourself while you're singing. So you can see if you're looking down, if you're making eye contact, if you're, all of these things are very important. And that's important for a band that has 5 members, or for a singer-songwriter who's going to be up on stage solo. You want to be able to engage the audience. So I think a great way of doing that is recording themselves performing. And, obviously you could even record yourself performing and put it on YouTube and get kind of a general feedback kind of thing from the masses. You could probably do the same thing on Reels or anything else, but I think even watching yourself back, you'll be able to see, oh, okay, wait, I was looking down the entire time, or I was too focused on my hands on this guitar, or, whatever it is, you know what you're doing and you can see it yourself. You don't need other people to tell you. And I think that's a really good way. And just, again, it comes down to practicing and being open to feedback.
That's great. Yeah. So even before needing to get feedback like externally, it's great to just like have perspectives of being able to record yourself as you're doing it. Probably would help you feel more comfortable too, so that you kind of know how you're coming across. It reminds me of I know like dancers. So I'm not a dancer. I'm like one of the world's worst dancers. But my wife is like an amazing dancer. She was like world level, like number 2 in the world, her team. And I've seen their practices, and they have big mirrors in front of themselves, and the mirrors help them see if they're doing it right. And that same thing applies to performances. If you can see yourself as you're doing it, that's a great way to get that instant feedback to be able to auto correct.
Yeah. I mean, even like I said, even silly things like eye contact, or like, being too focused on your instrument, or, having your eyes be all over the place. All of those things, even though they sound so simple and so obvious, you don't even realize that you're doing them. We all have those things that we don't even realize we're doing, and they come across on film for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, it's been fun connecting with you today and talking. We kind of covered the gambit. We have very practical, kind of focus on the fundamentals. You busted out a bunch of analogies. We also talked about like the future and the singularity and technology. It was fun. I would love to kind of bring it back as well to MusicGorilla. And someone's listening to this right now or watching this, and they would very likely be interested to understand more about MusicGorilla and the platform. Could you share a little bit about what MusicGorilla is, how it works?
Yeah, for sure.
To be a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, and I can just go, like we can do it from a very basic perspective in that. So we don't judge. We don't judge music. We do screen some of our submissions. We are selective with showcases, but anybody can sign up and anybody can use our platform on both ends. In other words, we screen our industry membership, but industry members can sign up and look for music for any projects that they're working on. Or we've worked with many A&R over the years from every label you can imagine. And we invite them, and then the artists can sign up as an artist for artist profiles, and they can browse our opportunities. They are proactive. In other words, they decide what to submit to and what not to. And then, we do our showcases, and artists can submit to those as well. We're also getting ready to branch out a little bit in terms of just going back to the feedback that we were talking about. We feel like feedback is an absolutely vital tool for artists. And so we are looking at how we can expand our platform to be more useful to artists, to provide them things that will help them hone their craft, but also allow them to move forward in it, and help them to be better at what they're doing. So we're making some changes, but that's what we have going on right now. But in looking to the future, we're looking to expand and really become a base for artists to be educated, but also to use their every tool in their toolbox to advance their careers in whatever they want to do, whatever direction.
Cool. Oh, that sounds super helpful. Yeah, I mean, even just like having that feedback from someone where just like a simple prompt, like, what did you like about this? What could be improved? that I can imagine is sort of like shooting the free throw and then seeing where it landed so that you can then kind of like aim in a different direction on it.
And then even in specific realms, I mean, for booking or for publishing or for songwriting or for marketing, you know, I mean, there's so many, like I said, artists have to wear so many hats that any light on their path is helpful. You know, anything that can say, okay, you know, this makes your life a little bit easier, I think is very productive.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, Alexia, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. And for anyone that is interested in checking out the MusicGorilla platform, what's the best place for them to go to dive in and to connect with you personally?
So they can just go to the website at musicgorilla.com. And they can email me directly at alexia@musicgorilla.com. And you can feel free to include my contact information with us. We like to be very accessible. We have a lot of artists on our platform, but we're very communicative, and we happily respond to anybody who wants to reach out to us. And then, of course, you know, we're on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. Blue sky.
Awesome.
But yeah, thank you for your time. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Like always, we'll put all the links in the show notes for easy access. And looking forward to talking again sometime soon.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.